On this week's episode of Keeping It Real, Cam tells us how excited he gets when he learns something new about things that are familiar.
I'm spending lots of time these days staring into the vacuum of my phone. A lot of us are. And I'm trying to ignore the stories that my news apps present. I'm disgusted by the fighting between politicians, scientists, and news channels to try to control the story and convey their preferred versions of the truth. I'm convinced that many of these people are unemployable, except in their current jobs, and to keep their jobs, they must attract eyeballs. And the only way to do that is to start ideological fights or retaliate. Mine is a cynical outlook, I admit, but scroll through your news stories and convince me I'm wrong. In the space of one screen on my phone, there are 4 stories, all claiming to be the truth, and all of which deeply contradict each other and accuse opposing points of view of ulterior motives. Sadly, the COVID-19 virus has become our nation's newest us versus them issue, and people seem convinced that if they scream louder, make more accusations, and hurl insults at anyone who dares hold another opinion, they'll convert those that disagree. We know nothing could be further from the truth, and I continue to delete these people from all parts of my life. About myself, I've learned that there is deep excitement in learning something new in something that's familiar, that's been close at hand, and has maybe even been taken for granted. The more questions I ask about what I thought I knew, and the more varied the sources of information, the more these fantastic discoveries happen. For example, recently a few of the parables that I had learned as a child in Catholic school and can recite nearly verse for verse can be interpreted differently and hold completely different meanings than the one I was originally taught. I discovered these new interpretations from a Jesuit priest, born and raised surrounded by the spiritual traditions of Hindu India. They blew me away. I love that something so familiar is new again. However, we are all surrounded by plenty of people who would turn away at the mere thought that something so personally sacred could have a different meaning than the one they've given it their entire lives. It borders on heresy to them, on blasphemy. They'll have nothing to do with it. And that attitude frustrates me. There's so much to learn. There's so much that we don't know. So much that strangers with different point of view can teach us. They'll have none of it. To paraphrase a line from an old song I like, they're swimming in a roped-off sea, staying close to what's comfortable, to what's already familiar. I wish I could convince them to try to understand a different point of view, to give space in their minds for new ideas and different arguments. But I know it would lead to my own deep frustration, and I'd feel hopeless, which would, sadly, lead me back to staring into my phone. I'm Cam Marston, and I'm just trying to keep it real.
To hear more of Cam Marston's commentaries, search for Keeping It Real on your favorite podcast app or find them on Facebook.